Here's a really interesting question. We know that when we're talking about ethics, Jewish ethics, Torah ethics, one of the most important ethical principles that the halakha teaches us is how we treat other people. And one very important dimension of how we treat other people is lashon hara, the prohibition not to speak negatively about another person. Also, oinas devarim, not to insult another person, because this is the harm that is caused with words, either behind their back or directly to them. And here's the really interesting thing. If that goes to the heart of what Jewish ethics, Torah ethics are all about, you would expect that the book of Jewish ethics, Pirkei Avot, which is always translated as Ethics of the Fathers, which I think is actually not a correct translation, but that's certainly the perception of what it is. You would imagine that it would deal with lashon hara, about not speaking negatively about others or not insulting people. But Pirkei Avot does not deal, there's not one Mishnah in Pirkei Avot that deals with the prohibition of speaking lashon hara about another person. How's that possible? The book of Jewish ethics doesn't even deal with the foundation pillar of what it is to be a Jew, and that is how we speak about others and how we speak to others. Now, this is a very relevant question in terms of our Parsha, because, you know, we're always looking for the connection from the Parsha to something in Pirkei Avot, to take a lesson from Pirkei Avot. And this week's Parsha is a Tazria-Metzora, and it deals with the spiritual sickness which manifested physically, that came in the times of the temple as a result of speaking lashon hara. It was called tsarat, and that's what our Parsha deals with. Now, therefore, a major theme, and the Gemara says this is what the spiritual disease came about as a result of people speaking lashon hara. And then the question is, why does Pirkei Avot not deal with lashon hara? And I think to answer that question, we actually have to go to the heart of what Pirkei Avot is about. Pirkei Avot is not a book of halacha, of what to do and what not to do. That's the rest of the Mishnah. Pirkei Avot has a very specific task, which our great sages, the Maharal and the Vilna Gaon, define the essence of Pirkei Avot as bein adam la'atzmo, intrapersonal, the development of self. Who is the human being that emerges from everything? Who do you become as a result of what the Torah is? The rest of the mitzvahs and the other books that we have in the Mishnah deal bein adam lamakom, our relationship and duties to God, our relationship and duty to people. But Pirkei Avot deals with who do you become, who are you? And that goes to the heart of that, they explain, is midas, midot, character traits. So actually what we're going to find in Pirkei Avot, we're not going to find in Pirkei Avot specifically about this is how you should speak to people, this is how you should speak about people, this is what you shouldn't do. It goes to the heart of character. And then the journey that I'd like to go on with you is to ask this question: what character traits lead us to speak negatively about or to other people? What's the root of the character? We have to go deeper, one level deeper in it, because also if we really want to change, we can't just change behavior. Behavior is a product of a worldview. It's a product of character. It's a product of values. So we have to scratch beneath the surface to say what lies beneath that. And of course, the answer to that is multifaceted. Can't sort of simplistically say, well, it's just this. But there is a framework for dealing with character traits. There's the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot in chapter 4, Mishnah 28 says, there are three core negative character traits. Hakina, hataiva, v'hakavod motzim es ha'adam min ha'olam. Jealousy, desire, and the pursuit of honor remove a person from this world. Now, the Vilna Gaon says that these form the three major categories of character. We're not going to go into all of it now because we don't have the time. Just want to look at one of them. And obviously, when one's dealing with human behavior, there's an intersection between all these character traits. They can't just be simply and neatly separated out like that. But he says if you really want to go to the heart of character, all negative human character traits, says the Vilna Gaon, fit into one of these three categories: jealousy, desire, and the pursuit of honor. And all the positive character traits are their opposite positive trait. Everything can be mapped into that. So then the question I put to you is this: where does lashon hara, speaking negatively about people, or oinas devarim, or speaking negatively towards people, which of these things is it rooted in? And it's, there's no right and wrong answer here. I'll just share with you, I want to look at specifically the pursuit of kavod, of honor, which forms a cluster, not just of the pursuit of honor, but it's the recognition, it's linked to arrogance, and it's the opposite of humility, and it is a sense of self-centeredness, which is a root of it. You see, jealousy could be part of it, but jealousy works in the opposite direction. Jealousy is when one feels inferior to another person and you want what they have, you feel a sense of insecurity. Kavod is the opposite. It's the feelings of superiority. It's looking down on another person. That is the heart of what kavod is about, and that's why it's linked to arrogance. So when we all go through that experience of speaking negatively about another person or to another person, it always comes from a space, I'm better than them, I want to feel better than them. If I criticize them, I push them down, then I'm better. I feel a sense of boost, a personal boost and superiority. Of course, human behavior, human psychology is much more complex than one concept. You can't distill all of it into one concept, but certainly this is a major driving factor, and that's why Pirkei Avot puts a great emphasis on the importance of humility, like in the Mishnah, chapter 4, Mishnah 4, it says, Ma'od ma'od havishval ruach, be very, very of humble spirit. And it uses the word very, very double. Ma'od, ma'od. Even to use it once would be a massive statement on the part of the Mishnah. To use it double goes even further. So this idea of humility, of seeing ourselves as equal to others, not looking down on other people, not taking pleasure in feeling superior to others, that's very deeply rooted in the whole ethos of Pirkei Avot, and that's part of what wanted to bring out is that Pirkei Avot's not going to deal with the end behavior, it's going to deal with the roots of it, because that's the person who is at the heart of actually what happens. But then the big question is, how do you fix it? We actually are now move the goalposts even further. If we're just dealing on the level of behavior, that's one thing. Now we're actually going deeper and saying, well, it actually goes to the root of how our whole worldview and how we view others, and arrogance and the pursuit of honor and self-centeredness. That then opens up like a whole world of trying to deal with it in the first place. But there's actually a very simple strategy. Because Pirkei Avot works in two ways. On the one hand, it gives a deep analysis of human psychology and the dynamics of the roots of behavior. On the other hand, what it does is it's very practical and tactical. So it gives you practical ways of addressing behavioral things on the basis that, and this is something we discussed a few weeks ago, human beings are influenced by action. One, it's true that the root of the human being is character and the way we look at it. But the gateway that Hashem gave us to mold our character is He gave us a program of actions. That's the power of the mitzvahs, because through action you can actually work backwards and change your character in a very deep way, especially through the repetition of it. And it gives a very simple formula. Mishnah Pirkei Avot chapter 4, Mishnah 1 says very, very simply, Eizehu mechubad, who is a person of honor? HaMechabed es sabrios, a person who gives honor to others. Meaning a very important tactic is go and give honor, respect, acknowledgement, praise, thanks, gratitude to other human beings. And the more you do that, the more you will start to value and respect. In other words, it has a knock-on effect. And so the Mishnahs, Pirkei Avot, for example, talk about in chapter 1, Mishnah 15, it says, receive every person, have a makabel kol adam b'sever panim yafot. Receive a person with warmth and kindness in your facial expressions and how you greet them. Chapter 4, Mishnah 20, it says, have a makdim b'shlom kol adam. Initiate the greeting. Don't wait for another person to greet you. You be the first to greet them. And for example, the Gemara tells of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, one of the greatest sages of the Talmud, that there was no human being who ever greeted him before he greeted them. And it says, Jew, non-Jew, doesn't matter who, he was always the first person to greet. And so through a thank you, a praise, a greeting, these are acts of respect. Lashon hara is an act or words of disrespect. Oinas devarim, insult, or words of disrespect. If we want to build a respectful approach to people, then the way that we do it is through multiple actions. And then there's an amazing Mishnah where it says in chapter 4, Mishnah 15, it says here, Yehi kavod talmidcha chaviv alecha kashelcha. Let the honor of your students be as dear to you as your own. Ukavod chavercha kamor rabach. And your colleagues and your friends, you should treat them with respect that you would give to your teacher, to your sage that you learn from. umore rabach, and your sage and your teacher, kamore shemaim, you should give them the honor that you would give to God. So Reb Chaim Volozhin in his commentary, the Ruach Chaim in his commentary in Pirkei Avot says, why is it that you're constantly giving extra kavod? So you're saying to your students, you treat them as if it's your own honor. To your colleagues, you must give them the respect that you would give to your teachers. And to your teachers and sages, you give them the respect you would give to God. Because he says, psychologically, we always tend to give less kavod, less respect than one needs to. So what the Mishnah is saying is aim to give too much, and then you'll more or less get it right. That becomes then the tactics of the Mishnah. So it says multiple acts of respect, of honor, of praise, of recognition. Do it to as many people as possible, and when in doubt, do it in excess, and then we'll more or less hit it right. And so what it's giving us then is a tactical approach to how to improve the way we relate to people through the power of acts of respect and kavod. That's the one approach. There is a deeper approach to it, which it also gives, and it goes back to the same Mishnah. Because listen to this thing. The Mishnah says that chapter 4, Mishnah 1, Eizehu mechubad, who is a person of honor. The Meiri says what it means is, who is a person who is worthy? One who gives honor to others. Now we have to understand why. Why is someone regarded to be so worthy if they give honor? Why is this the defining quality of who a person is worthy? And I think part of the answer lies in the verse. And generally, Pirkei Avot does not quote a verse from the Tanakh. Here is a very unusual one where it quotes a verse from the book of Samuel, and it says like this, Ki mechabdai achabed. God says, those who honor me, I will give them honor. Now ask yourself in this Mishnah. The Mishnah is saying, who is a person of honor? One who gives honor to other people. Because it says, those who honor me, I will give honor. So how in giving honor to another person are you giving honor to God? Because that's actually what the Mishnah is saying. It's saying, who is a person of honor? One who gives honor to others. As it says, that I will give honor, says God, to those who honor me. Now, how do we honoring God? In other words, very clear from the fact that the Mishnah quotes this verse is that according to Pirkei Avot, what it's really teaching us, when we give honor to human beings, we're in fact giving honor to God. Because at the heart and soul of the entire Torah value and ethics system of interpersonal relationships and how we treat human beings, Jew, non-Jew, society, family members, whoever it may be, the heart and soul of it is another Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, chapter 3, Mishnah 18, Chaviv ha'adam shenivra b'tzelem, beloved is the human being created in God's image. In every human being, as it says in the book of Bereshit, when God created human beings, He put a neshama. And therefore, when we're giving honor to another person, we are honoring the image of God in that person. And how we treat them is really an expression of, do we really honor and respect Hashem? How could we be disrespectful to another human being if we really see the Spirit of God in that person? And when we don't live up to that, it's because for that moment we forget this is a human being created b'tselem Elokim in God's image. But what this opens itself up to then is that it's a world view on how to come to respect one another. And this worldview is articulated magnificently in the famous Igeres HaRamban, the letter of the Ramban, one of our great sages from the 1300s, who wrote an ethical will to his children, and he gave them a document that says, this is how you should live as a Jew. What is the spirit of the system? And in it he says, one of the most important qualities that a person can strive for is humility. But what is the definition of humility and arrogance? The Ramban says, and it actually ties in with everything we're talking about here. The Ramban says, arrogance is feelings of superiority over another person. Now, but sometimes there are differences between people. Some people are cleverer, richer, more successful than others. So there are natural inequalities in the way that society turns out. So what does it mean that a person sees everybody as equal? So 2 points he makes. Number one is he says we need to recognize the frailty of the human condition. which he brings here from the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot in chapter 3, Mishnah 1, where it says, where the Mishnah says, know 3 things and you won't come to sin. Know where you come from, a putrid drop. Know where you're going to, it says, a place of rot and dust. And know before whom you're giving judgment and an account before Hashem. In other words, humility comes from the cold shower soberness of the frailty of the human condition. We're here today, we're gone tomorrow. What is the human being after all, except for the soul that God gives us, that Tzelem Elokim, that makes us immortal, that gives us a reflection of Hashem's greatness. So the starting point is, how do we feel superior to another person? Because who are we in the first place? To feel, well, we're so high and mighty because we're so frail, we're so vulnerable, and we're so temporary. So that's the first point. But the second point is, he says, what we do have is a gift from Hashem that he gives us to be and to fulfill our mission on earth, to make this world into a better place, to do mitzvahs, to help the people around us. All the gifts all the things that make one person better, in inverted commas, than another, all of those things come as gifts from Hashem. And so the Ramban writes here to his son, he says, a person who is arrogant towards other human beings, moired b'malchus shamayim, has rebelled against the kingship of heaven. Because he says, you are taking the clothes, it is to wear the clothes of glory that belong to Hashem. Because he says, what is there to be arrogant in the heart of man? He said, if it is wealth, Hashem brings wealth and poverty. If it is honor, that belongs to Hashem. If it is with intelligence and wisdom, Hashem gives it, Hashem takes it away. So everything, he says, Ki ba'apo mashbil geim v'ritzona magbir shvarim, Hashem can raise up the lowly and bring down the mighty. And therefore, he says, Al kain afarish lecha, he said, you should go with this midah of anava, of humility. And so when we start to realize that, then we realize that in fact we are all equal. Doesn't mean that we are the same. Everyone's got a different task. But one person was given the challenge of poverty, and another person was given the mission of wealth. One person was given the challenge and the mission of sickness, and another was given that of health. One was given this, another person was given that. We're all on a mission from Hashem, and whatever we have comes from Hashem, given to us to fulfill our task in this world. And when we realize that, then we respect every person around us, because we don't feel, one person doesn't feel they're better than another person doesn't feel inferior to another, because we all have what we are meant to have from Hashem, so that we can exercise our free choice and say, now that we have this, what are we going to do with it? And and how will we use it to fulfill our mission in making this world into a better place? And therefore, it is a fundamental, essential equality of all human beings, and that's where respect comes from. So we go back to the Mishnah. Eizehu mechubad, who is a person who is worthy and a truly great, honorable person, is ha-mechabed es-habrios, someone who gives honor and respect to the people around, ki mechabdai chabed, because God says, I will honor those who honor me. Meaning, if we can see the Spirit of God in every person, and we realize our own worthiness is because we have the Spirit of God within us, and we realize that whatever we have comes from Hashem, and it is a gift and an opportunity, whether it is painful or it is joyous, whether it is something which is challenging or brings us ease, whatever it is that was given to us by Hashem for our mission. When we recognize that and we look around and we see there are fellow human beings who are with us on this journey, and everyone's got their path and everyone's got their thing to do, then we see a world of fellow human beings created in God's image. Then naturally will flow from that will be an attitude of respect. And with that respect will come and flow the entire system of Torah ethics of how we treat people. Then we won't speak badly about them or insult them to their face, or we will have the sensitivity, the generosity, the kindness, the sensitivity. But that starts with belief in Hashem, seeing the Spirit of God, and with that, Pirkei Avot gives us a worldview. So instead of dealing with the details of the actions and the specific instructions, Pirkei Avot comes and says we must go to the heart of the human condition, the heart of where we stand, and that is all about a culture of respect. That starts with practical day-to-day actions and acts of respect, and that starts with a whole worldview where we understand the human being, see Hashem, see our role within that, and then we can achieve that ultimate accolade of our sages. Eizehu mechubad. Who is a person of real honor, nobility? Mechubad is a person who is truly noble. And it says, ha-mechabed es-sabrios, who gives respect to others, ki mechabdaya chabed. Those who see the greatness in others, says Hashem, I see greatness in them. Thank you.